Hello everyone, I am back with another video. I am going to be talking about this Africans versus African Americans divide, the division, and the common misconception that Africans hate African Americans. Now I'm going to put it out there that it is a very minute number of Africans that have some form of grudge, some form of hatred towards African Americans. Like, it is a very small amount of Africans that holds that mentality. I'm going to explain why that is. Even though a lot of African Americans believe that Africans hate them, most Africans hate them and all that, but it's really not, what you think. I'm going to start off with white supremacy, particularly white supremacy's white media. We all know that here in America, they show all these negative images of black people in the media. Like, we all know that white media is full of black degradation. All these so-called black shows are full of black degradation. It's meant to demean us. It's meant to, promote bigotry. It's meant to promote negative stereotypes about black people, particularly black Americans. And that's pretty much what these black folks on TV are being used for. They're being used to fulfill their agenda, to constantly promote the stereotypes and constantly promote black degradation, promote negative images about black people when it's not even the reality of how black American people are. So we all know that these so-called black shows are toxic. Some of y'all want to call it just entertainment when it really isn't just entertainment. It's toxic. It has affected and is still affecting black Americans. It is influencing black American people. It is brainwashing them and programming them. So the fact that, we know that there are black Americans out there who have been programmed, conditioned, and brainwashed by this toxic white media that has all these images, these negative images about them. The fact that black Americans out there, not all, but a large portion of them are being affected by this, images of their own people. Like, come on now, like, wouldn't that be common sense to know that Africans in the continent are even more vulnerable to being brainwashed as well? I mean, I forgot to mention that Africans in the continent have access to the media that we watch here. All the shows out here in America that we have on our television screens, such as Nickelodeon, BET, Disney Channel, CNN, Fox News, all these shows, all these channels, all these shows that black Americans watch in America is what Africans have access to watching down there too. They have satellites down there, they have satellite cables like DSTV. I mean, they have different names for it, but it's pretty much the same as Dish Network, DirecTV, Time Warner, whatever, you name it. So they have access to watching these shows, these same channels that's affecting black Americans. They're watching it down there too. Now, it's not the majority. It's not, as if every single African has access to this, cable, but it is a large portion that do. I'm gonna put it out there that, like I said, the average African does not meet a African American in their lifetime, nor do they meet a white person. Like, the average African does not encounter, an African American, and if they do, it's only one, because it's not a lot of African Americans in the continent for about 2 billion Africans to encounter in their lifetime. So, minimum, they'll probably meet like one or two, and that's it. And that's not enough to judge how African American people are. So, I'm gonna use an example. If If I have never met an Asian person in my life, I have never encountered with an Asian person, I have never been around a significant amount of them, like let's say 10 of them, even like at least 10 of them, I've never, really got to know their history. Like, I don't know anything about Asian people. I have no clue. I haven't met one. If I am like that, but the only time I actually see an Asian is on TV, but in reality wise, I don't encounter with any one of them. I don't see any of them. I haven't got to, speak to any of them. But the only time I actually see Asians is when I see them on TV. And, they happen to always be, they happen to always play negative roles or be shown in a negative light, like, if that's all I see about Asian people, and that's all I've always seen about Asian people for like the past 20, 30 years of my life, or even 40, 50 years for some, isn't it common sense that I would basically go to Asia with an already programmed mindset about Asians being what I've seen on TV for the past 30 freaking years of my life? So isn't it common sense that someone who has never met a certain particular people in real life, but the only time they see them or hear about them is through media and through white media and these shows that degrades black people, black Americans, isn't it common sense that, this person is gonna most likely develop a conditioned mindset about black Americans? Now, I'm not saying that all Africans fall in victim and fall for this lie about how black Americans are what is shown on TV, but most do. Not all, but most do. When it comes to white supremacy, just as the media is shown here in America is what's also shown there, same for the educational system. What y'all don't know, or some of y'all don't know, is that the educational system in Africa is very similar to America. Because, the colonizations by the Europeans and all that, they get white-centered history. They learn more about Europe than they do about Africa, like, honestly. Just as us here in America, we learn more about white folks than we do about black folks. And when we did go to school and learn about black people, it was all about civil rights movement and slavery. That's all. We didn't learn about, the positives. We didn't learn about anything else besides those two topics, which is basically, not even that positive anyway. So Africans in the continent, they also have that similar issue. They get white-centered education. They graduate knowing a lot about Europe than they do about their own freaking continent, like, honestly. And that's sad, but that's their reality, and that's what they're dealing with because of white supremacy and colonization. So back to my example, if I have never met Asian people in my life, I've never seen them, I've never encountered with one, I haven't met at least 20 of them, I've never really learned about their history, I've never encountered with one face to face. I've never seen one in my life in reality. Like, the only time I see them is when I'm watching television and this television happens to always show negative images about Asians. They always happen to show, degradation about them. They degrade them, they demean them, they always show negativity about them. And this is what I've been watching for 20, 30, 40, 50 years of my life before I go to Asia. Now, won't I most likely, 9 times out of 10, won't I, most likely go to Asia with an already programmed mindset about Asians being what I've seen on TV for the past 20, 30, 40, 50 years of my life? Because that's pretty much, synonymous to Africans who come abroad here in America, Europe, whatever. A lot of them are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. They are, basically past their teenage years. They're basically, adults, like grown-ups, middle-aged people especially. So for the past, couple decades of their lives, whenever they watched, TV and any form of TV that happens to have Black Americans in it, it's always been negative. They come here after, all these decades with an already programmed mindset about Black Americans, and that's sad, but is it their fault? No. Unlike here, a lot of us, the majority of us actually have access to internet and television and all forms of, devices. While down there are some people who don't. In fact, I'll say at least the majority doesn't. Once you've excluded the amount of Africans who are still living in remote villages, who are still living, the old-fashioned lifestyle, who are still living, in the ways they lived before colonization and all that stuff. Like if you exclude those, that's a lot of people. Now, if you exclude even those in the modern day societies, in the city areas, the urban areas where they are, a lot of them are finding it hard and they're struggling because of corruption and poverty. Money is hard to come by down there for most people. It's real down there. It is, honestly, it is real down there. It's a lot of people suffering, a lot of people who are finding it hard to make ends meet. Money is hard to come by. So even in the cities, when you exclude the amount of people who are low income and don't got no money to be watching TV, don't got the money to afford cable, they don't have no money to afford internet, nothing like that. Once you exclude those, now that's another large amount of people. And now, further, when you go to towards those who do have, the luxury to have television and cable in their household and happen to watch all these shows that we are shown here, and happen to basically be fed the same bullshit that we are being fed here. Now, it's a lot of people, but not all of them fall for it. Not all of them, basically end up thinking that that's how Black American people are. It is, I'll say, and not to mention that it is not, no, those people in that category, like half of them, like I'll say a small percentage of them go abroad to America, Europe, whatever. So, like, ask yourself, what reason does Africans in the continent have to hate you? What reason? They're not around y'all, often to even know who you guys are. They don't learn about your history. They don't know about, your history. What reason would they have to hate you? They don't know you like that. Honestly, they don't know you like that. So, I mean, and they haven't encountered with lots of Black Americans to even have a reason to hate y'all. So what reason do Africans in the continent have to hate you? Like, honestly, like just think about it. What reason do they have to hate you? So after excluding all these categories of Africans who do not even have the luxury to have to be programmed by white media, and it's like, maybe, as I'll say, it is not a lot of Africans that has cable in their house, because not a lot of them are able to afford it. It's corruption down there. It's poverty down there. Not everybody's able to afford it. So, like, honestly, y'all need to try and wake up out of this divide and conquer agenda that white folks have put us into, because that's basically what this is divide and conquer. And African Americans, are not innocent from it either, because African Americans, they have been brainwashed as well. A lot of them have been brainwashed about how Africa is. They think Africa is is a poor continent. They think Africa is full of people who lives in huts, all that other stuff, and some African Americans do have some form of hatred towards Africans because of the falsified history that they were taught about slavery. And the white man done blamed Africans for everything, which makes them hate Africans because of what happened during slavery. And so that's that's on that side of the African American field. So basically, like, we have to understand what's going on in this world. We have to understand what's going on here and what's going on down there. have to understand that there's no reason for Africans in the continent to hate you guys. And for those who have encountered with an African person who has been negative towards them, or if you have encountered with, even 5 of them, like honestly, half of the Africans who come abroad, they come with a brainwashed mentality. Y'all really think that Africans, just happen to have this mindset just pop up in their heads before they get into the American soil? Like, y'all really think that Africans who have this mindset about African Americans, y'all really think that it came out of nowhere? Like, it came from media, y'all. It came from white media. It came from being brainwashed. It came from being conditioned and programmed to think that African Americans are all that negative bullshit that they see on TV and that they show on TV and that they saw down there before they got here, because, like I said, they have access to cable down there. So some of these Africans that come here to American soil or Europe or wherever, who encounter with African Americans, some of them just happen to, show some form of shade towards African Americans, or some form of dislike, or not wanting to associate themselves with African Americans because they've been brainwashed. And it's not a generalization, because I know Africans who have, moved abroad, gone to, America especially, that do not think like that. Like, it's a minute number of Africans who think like that. Not everybody who comes to America, comes with a brainwashed mindset. Though I will admit that, a lot of them are brainwashed, but it's not to the point of it being a vast majority, because it's impossible for the vast majority of Africans to hate you. Like, honestly, do y'all really think the vast majority of Africans hate you? And how is it possible? How is it possible when, a lot of Africans don't even know about y'all? Just think about it. How is it possible when a lot of African Americans don't even know about Africans to hate the majority of Africans, even though some do out of ignorance? But it goes both ways. Just think about it. What reason do Africans in the continent, the majority, that y'all think hate y'all, what reason do they have to hate y'all when they don't even know y'all? They don't know your history. They never met any of y'all. Majority don't even know y'all or have talked to y'all. Like, I mean, honestly, what reason do they have? And just like my example I used with somebody who's never met an Asian, same thing. Like, what reason would they have to hate Asians if it's not because of what they saw on TV all their lives until they landed on Asian soil? So the same thing applies for Africans who lands on American soil or European soil and start to encounter with Black Americans or the blacks in Europe or whatever. It's the same thing. So y'all need to understand that whenever you encounter with these people, whenever you encounter with them, just understand that they are programmed, they are brainwashed. Just keep in mind that they are a casualty of being fooled by white supremacy's white media. And there are African Americans who are also, similar to that. They also fit into the category of being brainwashed about Africans, and they have been basically fooled to thinking that Africa is all negative upon negative upon negative. So it goes both ways. That's why I always say that us African people as a whole, globally, are all on the same boat, but in different geographical locations. We are all on the same boat, but live in different areas. We are being programmed wherever we are. All our issues are similar. The agendas are similar. We are practically dealing with the same issues by white supremacy, just in different locations. So just, a message to put out there for y'all who've always had this mentality that Africans hate y'all. Just to put it out there for you guys that it's not like that. Thanks for listening.